Spending fights like this are expected to return in the new year. I want to talk about that and an important hearing that's about to happen. Republican Congressman Jason Smith, he's the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. We're also going to speak to him, as I just mentioned, about this hearing that he's holding today on anti-Semitism on college campuses. But first, let's talk about the funding fight. The good news is the government's going to stay open. The bad news is we're going to have this debate all over again, Chairman.
Unfortunately, it's like Groundhog Day, Andrew, but the good thing is, like you said, we are going to keep government open. More than half of the House Republicans, in fact, voted to have this extension in funding. We, unfortunately, since the last funding bill, wasted 22 days for a speaker fight. However, we did have 3 weeks to pass 3 additional appropriations bills. The House of Representatives has passed more than 75% of all government funding. The United States Senate has only passed 17%, but we need to still continue to pass 5 more of the appropriations bills and then send it to conference with the United States Senate and hopefully get some resolution to actually pass true appropriations bills by January and February.
And what do you think the chances are that that's actually going to happen? Given that I imagine the Democrats are not going to be on board with all of that.
I think the Democrats will be on board for funding government and going through regular order. I hope that they don't want these huge 1,000-page omnibus spending bills that are usually pushed through right before Christmas that no one reads. I hope that they want a transparent process of how we are spending money. We should do all 12 appropriations bills. The House has passed 7. We need 5 more to go. The Senate has only passed 3. So both chambers need to do their job, and then let's go to conference, how our founding fathers had set out appropriations, and then let's pass those bills.
Let's talk about this hearing that's going on today around anti-Semitism. I know you're going to be speaking to a number of affected students at universities, but part of what you're looking at is taxpayer-funded schools and how they have reacted to some of the rhetoric or worse, dare I say, at some of these universities. What do you want to happen?
You know, Andrew, our focus is, of course, the tax code. The Ways and Means Committee has jurisdiction of the tax code. What we will be analyzing, looking at, are 2 different major areas. One, we're going to be looking at terror financing, and that is through 501Cs. What we have documentation is that our tax code actually allows 501Cs to fund Hamas and terrorism with tax advantage 501Cs. We're also going to look at the tax exempt status and, of course, these large billion-dollar endowments that universities have. And we need to make sure that these universities are following free speech. They're not following preferred speech, and that they're protecting young men and women, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion. And unfortunately, we've seen some major college campuses that have not disavowed this anti-Semitic harassment that has been going on throughout this country on many college campuses.
Chairman, let me ask you this, and this is the complicated part, and maybe it's complicated for me personally. I'm a Jewish American, and I have been affected personally by the anti-Semitism that we're seeing in the country. So that's on one side of this, and there's no question that hate speech is terrible and it's dangerous, and some of the things that are happening on some of these campuses that are worse than just the speech itself clearly should be held to account. But then there's the other side of this, which goes to this idea of free speech. And so there's a view that other kinds of speech, considered woke speech, was allowed to go on in a way that shouldn't have. And so to me, there is this issue of, are they the same thing? Are they not the same thing? If we're trying to protect marginalized groups one way or the other, should we be trying to protect all of them? Or is it that we want one speech but not the other? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, but that's why I said free speech is extremely important. What we don't is want these higher institutions, higher education institutions, to have preferred speech, like pick which speech they like better than others. Whenever there is hate speech, whenever there's hate speech, they should disavow it and they should protect their students. Unfortunately, we're going to have a student from Cornell that will be testifying, a Jewish student, about her experiences at Cornell and how the university overlooked that. In fact, there was a Cornell professor that said it was exhilarating to see what happened on October 7th. I'll tell you, yesterday, Andrew, when I watched the video footage, a body cam footage of Hamas terrorists that was a closed briefing here, it was the most atrocious thing I've ever seen. And for a professor at Cornell to say that's exhilarating, that is so wrong.
Well, so and I should also say, in full disclosure, I'm a Cornell alumnus, and I find it very disturbing. The question is, do you think that that professor, for example, should be suspended, fired, nothing? What's the answer?
You know, Andrew, we have seen professors at other campuses get fired for much lesser activity. And so I think Cornell needs to clean their house.
And the question is, how can you, I mean, do you imagine that that your group, effectively, that you oversee, is going to hold these universities to account by effectively threatening the tax-exempt status? I mean, is that what this is ultimately about? And do you actually see that happening?
What this hearing is about is to expose how tax-benefited institutions are not enforcing the rule of law and not following free speech. That is what we're going to be highlighting today, and then we're going to move forward to see where we need to act from moving on. But what I will say is back in 2017, you saw billion-dollar endowments at these universities get taxed 1.4%. Billions. But they're only taxed 1.4%.
Right.
There's a lot of my colleagues, both in the House and Senate, that wants us to revisit that.
What do you think about all of these universities that have taken money from countries in the Middle East? So they've set up shop in the UAE. They've taken money from Qatar. It's rampant, American universities, and whether you think that has an impact on the kind of speech that you're seeing on university campuses today.
I think it absolutely does have an impact. They're paying attention to their donors, and it is scary to see that you see such a large amount of money coming into these universities. But
should we prevent that kind of? Should we preventing? I mean, this goes to free borders, open trade, all sorts of questions. You know, would you take Saudi money?
Andrew,
would you not take Saudi money? Would you? I mean, no. But this is a fundamental question about where money comes from and then the influence it has. There's some people saying that the donor class, even in America, that the university shouldn't listen to the donors, that they should be focused strictly on what they think is best for the education. There's others that say that the university have been selling influence and access to donors for the last 100 years, and you know that's the product they're selling. And so if the donors raise their hand and say there's a problem, there's a problem.
Andrew, there's a lot of things that we need to look at where money's coming from. Something we're also doing is looking at 501Cs in the House Ways and Means Committee of where international money is coming into political campaigns, which is illegal. But in fact, that's happening. These are multiple items that we have to look into. What the solution is to that? We're going to have to make sure that Congress figures that out. But we know that these are problems that need to be addressed.
Chairman Smith, we appreciate your time. We look forward to following the hearing today, and I'm sure we'll talk again very soon.
Thank you.